So I want to preface this video with saying I watch several of this gentleman's content. His name is Anton Daniels. I will link his content in the description section down below. Today, he popped up on my feed like he does usually, and as I'm listening to him talk, some of the things he said were concerning, but also from one standpoint, I understand it, but I have a completely different perspective that I think most men and women need to hear. So let's get into it.
Under any circumstances. And I want to break this down from a couple different spaces. You never, under any circumstances, let a person, people, things, circumstances get in the way of the thing that you know you're supposed to be doing. Your purpose, which ultimately leads to the bag. And I know that people don't want me to say the bag or money or whatever, because they always want to make an excuse as to why they not getting to it or why they didn't fumbled it or anything like that. Money ain't everything. It don't mean nothing. Shut the fuck up. You a liar. You a liar. And it does mean something, and it means a lot. It's the difference between your daughter taking out student loans and her actually going to college tuition free. It's the difference between being able to get here on a jet or being able to go there on the back of the plane. I mean, it fixes a multitude of things, and I agree. You don't have to love it or worship it, but it doesn't mean that you can't make sure you're intentional about taking care of business, and then the money comes with it.
So on this particular video, I'm going to jump in probably more, so hopefully it doesn't become annoying, but I don't want him to get too far before I comment on some of my thoughts. Now, I agree with what he's saying when he's talking about, said that he hears people make comments about the term get the bag, which you're talking about a bag of money. And on one side of it, I understand where he's coming from. And he said, yes, he understands that it's not all about money and things. I get that. But I still think his perspective is a little bit skewed because there is a balance to everything. The one thing I do agree with is that we should be out, especially the men should be out doing whatever is necessary to create wealth and income for their household. But the problem comes when we take the idea of finances and that becomes like our God and that becomes like all that we really care about. And like I said before, there is a balance to things in this life. So let's get a little bit further into it.
Anybody that's purposeful, you can't not get to the money. Anybody that's purposeful, it comes along with it. So if I see that you broke, I'm gonna just be frank with y'all today. If I see that you broke, and it's not a temporary thing, because everybody goes through things and life gives you ups and downs and you get layoffs, whatever. If you're always broken, you've always been broke, you've always been dusty and you never get into it, it's because you're not purposeful. And sometimes people aren't purposeful because they allow for other people. Some people just lazy. And then other times people are just middling and they're not really breaking out. And some of y'all got some incredible talent and you just ain't got no work ethic. You ain't got no consistency. The reason that you ain't.
Now, real quick, there's a lot of truth in what he's saying. I believe, now I'm almost 60. I believe Anton here is probably in his early 40s or late 30s. But regardless, the point I'm trying to make is I still have a work ethic, probably even more in my older life. I'm retired and I still work as hard, if not harder, than when I was actually working full time. Because I, just like what he's saying, I do agree that we should be purposeful. The word I like to use is intentional. There is no excuse why we can't be better. And there are a lot of people that are lazy.
Is because you ain't been putting your time in. You ain't been nurturing your craft. You ain't been nurturing your purpose. And y'all think that y'all purpose is to create a family or always to be up under a woman. Bruh, let me tell you something, man.
The reason I disagree with that statement is because creating a family is biblical. And I've watched enough of his content where I hear him talk about God and sounds like he's got some sort of a belief system there. I don't know how deep that goes, but the Bible makes it clear. If you go back to the book of Genesis, the reason why we were even created was to go out and replenish the earth and procreate. So family is important. And if you look at society right now, you can see how jacked up families are because people have gotten the order backwards. Okay, God is a God of order, not a God of chaos. When you do things out of order, you have chaos. Even when it may look like it's good for a while, you have to do things in order. There is a balance to things.
I don't care what your relationship status is. You never, ever, as a man that has been married for almost 21 years, you never let a woman get between you and your bag. And anybody that is in the middle or trying to limit me from what it is that I'm supposed to do and say something like, well, you need to spend more quality time, or, oh man, I got to make sure that I can't work overtime because I got to go and make sure I take care of this woman, or I got to make sure I nurture this relationship. That relationship, in my opinion, is not for you. Because
Sorry again to keep pausing the video, but there's so many points I want to hit on because I don't agree with everything that he's talking about. I truly believe that the relationship is important. I think it's vital. Again, going back to being a God of order. You can't focus on money and the bag and then let everything else fall by the wayside. Now, he's going to get a little bit into how important it is to have a female that understands that the man's position biblically is to be the head. He is to lead. And it's not just in making money, it's in raising the kids. It's in leading your family in prayer, helping them study and understand the Bible. It's a big area that it covers. It's not just going out and making money. So I understand where he's coming from, but where I disagree is I believe when this young man here dies, or when I die, I'm not taking anything with me. But again, coming back biblically, the Bible makes it clear that we should leave an inheritance for our children and our children's children. So I agree with him on that. Yes, you do need to go out and work hard and do whatever you need to do legally to make that bag, as he speaks. But you can't lose sight of everything that's important, because what people don't realize, especially a lot of men, is when you allow the bag, I'll use his term, to be the primary influence, sometimes other things fall by the wayside. That relationship with your daughter, how important it is in raising up a daughter. I've heard him talk about it in his other videos that he has a daughter, an older daughter, and how important that relationship is. Now, I don't know what he's done or what he's already poured into her, but if you're spending all your time out chasing the bag and doing all these other things, things are going to suffer, okay? If I'm focusing on my area over here and making money, the relationship's going to suffer, may end in a divorce. The relationship with my child may suffer to where I'm not pouring into her and helping her navigate this life, and then she ends up with some knucklehead boy that gets her pregnant, and then she's making a whole lot of bad choices. So there is a domino effect.
That would allow for you to fumble a bag or would place themselves before what would allow for you to be purposeful or meet the expectation of what God has for you, as far as you being very intentional and taking care of business. They don't love you. I'm serious. I'm serious as a heart attack.
I don't agree with that, bro.
I don't believe that a person loves you if they allows for you to, fumble a bag. I use an example. I think about, different NBA players like the Ja Morants or all of these type of people, whatever, right? And the people that have historically, gotten in trouble or fumbled the bag. And it doesn't mean that they're not great at what they do, but, they weren't intentional. But I also look at the people that they surround themselves with. And I remember back even in the hood, right, when you was coming up, the hood knew the ones that was going to be successful or that was going to be great, but you would still influence what was coming around you. And so the OGs back in the day, it might be a little bit different now, but the OGs back in the day, they would say, hey, fam, you can't be around here at this time, bro, because, it's not good or whatever. Or they send you home, or they respected your parents and stuff like that. They loved you so much that they knew that they was probably not going to make it out, or they was involved in some shit. And then they made sure that you got the fuck up out of there because they wanted the best for you, right? They didn't want you to mess up your future. They didn't want you to fumble the bag. They seen something. They seen the same thing that everybody else seen in you. And when you manifested it, you never really thought about it again because the call is on you. And if guys don't have this sentiment, whether you're married or whether you're single, and I know some of y'all are so hamstrung and some of y'all are so caught up that this is beyond you. This is not even something that you would consider. This is so far off the reservation, you can't imagine working a couple of extra hours to bring home some better food on the table. Can't imagine it. It's all about making sure that we sit up under that bridge together. If I always believe that no matter how gorgeous they are, no matter how nice they are, I don't think that you can fumble women when it comes to them walking away based off of the fact that you won't spend some extra time or all of that, right? I just don't believe it. I believe that they fumble themselves.
I am blessed, and it sounds like he is as well, to have a woman in our lives that understand the importance of, hey, honey, go out and do your thing. If what you're doing is going to make us better. But I'm also, at least from my standpoint, I try to be very mindful of the time that we spend together, because that's also important. You know, you got to look at it differently. Okay? When you took this woman's hand in marriage, you made promises, you made a covenant, you made an agreement how you would love and honor and cherish this woman. You know, and there are things that go along with that, you know. So it's important to make sure that you nurture that relationship. You know, my wife and I have had discussions before. She uses the analogy of a garden. If you have a garden, okay, and you neglect it, you know, going out chasing the bag, so to speak, well, that's all you do, that's your primary focus, who's watering the garden? Who's nurturing the garden? Who's fertilizing the garden? Who's pruning the garden? So when you come home, your garden looks like somebody took a blowtorch to it. You see what I'm saying? So that's where he and I disagree, and that's okay. You know, we're all at different stages in life and different levels of understanding. But again, it's nothing wrong with chasing after financial freedom or generational wealth. There is nothing wrong with that. The problem is where you don't find that life balance, where you let everything else fall by the wayside. So yes, men, it is important to find a lady that is supportive and in your corner. It's one thing if you're going out trying to sell peanuts on the highway to make money for your family versus hanging out in the clubs, playing video games, or doing whatever that you shouldn't be doing, jeopardizing your relationship.
Let her go. If she don't get up under your program and under your covering, not the other way around. And it's not equal. Please miss me with that. It's not equal. It's so unequal when it comes to men versus women, basically in traditional relationships. And maybe that's why women today say that they want a partner instead of wanting a husband. Traditionally and historically, men went out and they went and they went and hunted and they killed. And they could be out there for 3-4 days to make sure that they bring the whole tribe back, whatever it is, that deer meat, you know what I'm saying, that venison. They was gone. Or men traveled far distances and then they would send for their family 2 or 3 years later once they got a secure job and housing and all of that. That wasn't abnormal. But now, for whatever reason, maybe y'all just need a couple history lessons. Now, for whatever reason, y'all think that it's normal for a dude to spend the other 16 hours of his day after the 8 hours that he worked up under a woman. I didn't know that it was a number that I was limited to for how much that I can go and make. And if you telling me that I can run my own business and I can make as much as I can, man, I start seeing people fall off and I'll be like, oh man, they sick or they got a woman.
I understand where he's coming from. So the more I listen to what he's saying, it sounds to me that the point he's trying to make is society has changed. And when I listen to him talk about how men would go off and be gone for long periods of time or go to get their house in order before they invited the woman. Yes, in the old days, and again, I try to come biblically, the lady stayed at her house with her parents, her family, until he was ready to come and get her. That is very true, but I notice him using a lot of biblical words like covering. So he just made, she's not willing to fall under my covering. So now, as a woman, yes, when you choose to marry this man, or whatever man you choose to marry, especially if you are a believer in Christ, you do fall under that covering. You know, he is the head. The Bible clearly says that man is the head of wife. Christ is the head of man. Man is the head of his wife. And again, I always add this. It's not about lording it over her, beating her in the head. You're going to do what I say you can do. There is a respect there, because you also have to remember, man comes from woman, okay, in birth. But also woman came from man. Where Adam went to sleep, God took a rib from the man and created the woman. So one is not better than the other. I'll tell you that all the time. There are gifts and abilities that my wife has, and I'm sure this Anton guy can say the same, where I couldn't do it without her. It's almost like she completes me. You hear that saying a lot. So there's a lot of truth in that. But again, I don't disagree. I don't agree with everything that he's saying, and maybe it's just the way he's saying it. I understand that that it's important to be careful who you marry anyway. I mean, that's even biblical. The Bible says, do not be unevenly yoked. So if you marry somebody that is not living for the Lord, has no knowledge of understanding the Bible and covering and biblical headship and what the man's role is, the other problem too is most men don't even know what their role is. It's not just going out and making money. There's a whole lot more that's there. And there was a long time I didn't even understand that. You know what I'm saying?
Every single time. Anytime that I see a guy fall off, I always say, okay, so either he got sick, like, maybe he going through some stuff or whatever, or like really, really sick. Or he got a woman in his life because he switched up his patterns, he started losing money, started doing all of this, and guess what? That relationship is it's gonna do whatever it's gonna do. 9 times out of 10, a lot of them, they just there for the moment, and then it's gonna be over. You got your little experience or whatever, but guess what? You missed out on a whole lot of opportunities that would have probably changed the trajectory of your life. And I just can't understand it for the life of me. I cannot. And, they can call us toxic, misogynistic, or whatever you want to call us. But the only thing that you're never going to call me is broke. You're never going to call me broke because I can always go and get some more money. I can always replace you too. And so I don't mean that towards my situation because my situation is good. I don't have those type of problems. She understands her role and he plays it to a T. But for y'all got to make sure that y'all adjust, man. If she not playing her role to a T, then you got to find something else that go along with it.
And see, even there, you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. I'm saying, like, I guarantee you, Anton ain't got it all together, and neither does his wife. All of us are a work in progress, okay? You take 2 imperfect people with 2 different sets of backgrounds, 2 different life experiences, 2 different sets of baggage, because we all got some baggage, whether it's from our childhood or our teenage years or even our young adulthood. We all got baggage. And then you're trying to become one flesh according to what the Bible says and according to what I've even heard him say about the Bible. So you can't just treat it like, I'm done with you because you ain't living up. No, dude, I'm telling you right now, marriage takes work, it takes effort. And if you neglect it and you focus on everything else, it's going to suffer. There's a movie called Fireproof that has Kirk Cameron and some other people. It's an older movie. It's a Christian movie. But there's a scene in the movie, and I'm going to end with this, where the main character, Kirk Cameron, is looking at porn. He's trying to buy a boat where his wife's mother needs a hospital bed, and he's all about himself, all about being selfish. And there's a black guy that works in the firehouse with him, his lieutenant. And the lieutenant is having a conversation with him one day. He says, you know what, man? He says, I will watch you run into a burning building and save everybody's family, the dogs, everybody. But you're about to let your own marriage burn to the ground. Powerful statement, because as men, we can't lose focus on the big picture. Yeah, you can focus on money your whole life and chasing the bag and all this other stuff. And again, I believe it's important. Generational wealth, to your kids and your children's children. I get that. I'm all about that. There's a lot of things I'm doing right now, even at almost 60, where I feel like I'm working 8-10 hours a day, whether it's social media, whether it's trying to monetize other things. Trust me, I have a lot going on other than what you see me doing here on YouTube. But the point I'm trying to make is, yes, men, if you're watching this, you should not be sitting on your butt. You should be out doing whatever you need to do to provide for your family, even going above and beyond this. And like I used to always say this as a joke, even if it's selling peanuts on the highway to make ends meet, do whatever it is you have to do. I do agree with him that there's a lot of people that are not being purposeful or intentional. But again, I don't agree with everything because I don't believe you throw away people because they're not lining up to your standards, because all of us are messed up. I can tell you story after story of marriages that endured and the blessings that came out of it, whereas they were ready to throw in the towel. Heck, I've been ready to throw in the towel in my own marriage sometimes, and I have done it. I have failed marriages. Kudos to him for having been married to the same woman for 21 years, but it's a rarity. And the point I'm trying to make, and I'll end on this, is that we all have the past. We all have different experiences. We all have baggage. So take what you want from this video. Again, go check out his channel, Anton Daniels. Also, make sure you like this video and also share it with somebody that you know in your heart of hearts could use the information contained within it. If nothing else, just to give them a different perspective. Also, subscribe to the channel. I'd appreciate that. And as always, I will check you guys on the next one. And I love you. Take care.